YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. It's conference championship week. I got score predictions for some of the top games this weekend. Taking a look at the spreads in these games as well. Very excited for conference championships here. It's been a crazy year. Absolutely wild. A lot of upsets. Playoff is wide open as it's been, minus Georgia, unless they go down to Alabama. We'll talk about my prediction. The whole coaching madness, chaos. It's an insane year. I'm still waiting to see how that unfolds, how the playoff unfolds. I'm excited to break down my score predictions here for these games. We have NFL score predictions. We have full NFL coverage, actually, so join us for that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Follow our Twitter, constantly talking about all this going on between the NFL and college football, live updates, always talking with you guys. Check it out. Link down below. Description comments for anything that you may need. Pac-12 championship. I got a close game. It's right with. I was surprised by the line. I predicted the score. I check out the line. It happens to be the same amount if I had Utah winning by. But I was surprised. I thought the line would be a little more in Utah's favor, rather than be favored by more, actually, because what happened last time. But yeah, I was kind of getting that feeling. Or I can just based off this year, what has gone down this year, I could see 2 weeks later, after Oregon got their ass beat, just turn around and win this game. I could see it. It's very tough to pick against Utah in this game, though. Oregon's dealt with a lot of injuries this year, obviously. They had some guys get beat up last week, but it sounds like the top players will be good to go there, but we'll see. But, yeah, it's tough to pick against Utah because they just completely outplayed Oregon. They look like the much better team, even though Oregon was the much better team leading up to that point. It just felt like Utah they were just way more physical. They were the much better team. Oregon I guess it's questionable if they knew what was kind of getting thrown at them, because Utah's offense, I think, is a little predictable, but Oregon still couldn't stop them. But it's a whole different game. It's only 2 weeks later, but it's a whole different game. You got a neutral site, in Utah last time. It was crazy. They had a really good start, got some really good momentum, got with the crowd. The crowd got going as well because of that. They had a punt return right before the end of half, which was massive. I don't expect it to go down that way, but again, it is tough to pick against Utah here, because what happened last time. But I could see it. Oregon's supposed to be the better team. And they are really, really beat up. But I think the key last time was Utah, rising, getting running. Early on in those first couple of drives, he was taking off, and they're designed pass plays. But I thought that was actually a key. But they just outworked them inside in the running game. It's what it is. They're both going to run the ball. We know that. It's going to be who wins that battle there. So I'll take Utah. It's been a weird year. I think Oregon can bounce back and win this one instead of neutral site. I think it's very possible. Next game, the Big 12 championship game. It's a tough one, too, because as of right now, we don't really know if Bohannon for Baylor is going to be playing. He's dealing with the hamstring injury, and that's obviously a tough loss if he can't go, dealing with the hamstring injury. I'm guessing at this point. I'm going to say it's total guess. It's Tuesday right now. We're recording this video. I'm going to guess maybe he tries to go, but the hamstring's so weird because it feels like you can go, and then as soon as you get going, you can't anymore, and you make things worse. So this is really for all the marbles right here in the Big 12, though. So we'll see. If he's not playing, I'm very confident with Oklahoma State. But I don't know if it changes the score a whole bunch. Because even if Bohannon plays, not 100%. If he was fully healthy, there was not even a concern at all. This would be a lot tougher. I'd have them both around that 24 range. I could see Baylor winning the game that way. But since again guessing, I think he gives it a go. I'm guessing that I don't know I'm not a doctor. I'm not the trainer. But will he be 100%? How long will he last that game? Maybe he doesn't even go. So that's kind of tough as well. I actually have a similar score to how it ended the first time they played, which was weeks ago. And it's tough because you can argue both ways here because Oklahoma State, what was the final? 24-14. Oklahoma State turned the ball over a bit. Sanders had 3 picks in that game. Baylor's defense giving them some problems. And they still won, still ran for a lot of yards, still scored enough points to win. So you could say if he just eliminates those turnovers, which you expect them to, they could win by even more. You could argue that. You also could argue maybe Baylor's got a good defense. That's not a maybe. Baylor does have a good defense, and Oklahoma State has great defense. But maybe Baylor just has Sanders' number. Maybe it's just a good enough defense to stop him. And so I'm predicting a similar score because these defenses, I don't think Sanders gets picked off 3 times. I think that just maybe Baylor gets more stops this time instead, which results in a similar score line here. But yeah, I don't know if I trust Baylor getting enough going on offense. Oklahoma State's defense has been really good. Very good. Lockdown defense. They locked down Baylor the first time around as well, and that was when Bohannon was fully healthy. So they locked them down. I guess, and they've been, absolutely dominant, the Cowboys defense, that is. But last week against Oklahoma, they didn't look themselves. I know it's a big game. It's an even bigger game. But Oklahoma's offense has been struggling. So, did they expose some things? Can Baylor get going? Those are some questions. I'm going to trust Oklahoma State. If Baylor was, Bohannon was 100% healthy, there was no concern at all. There was no question. I might be leaning towards the upset there. I might be leaning towards Baylor because it's hard to beat a team twice. But I think Oklahoma, it's not a free one. Still, definitely not even close to a free one. But I got Oklahoma State. They should be able to take care of business, and this should get them in the playoff. If they need Georgia to take care of business against Alabama, though. If Alabama beats Georgia, both those SEC teams are in. So we'll see what happens there. Speaking of that game, I'm having a tough time with this one, actually. I picked Georgia 23-20, so they don't cover the spread. While I'm watching Alabama play Auburn, even when they beat Auburn last week, I'm thinking, Bama, they struggled in their games that they struggled in. They struggled mainly offensively. And if you point out two, one that they lost, Texas A&M, and they end up scoring a good amount of points, but I do think A&M's, if you look at the score, it won't really show that A&M's defense was a factor. And A&M is a very good defense. In a game that Alabama was very, very close to losing, Auburn, another defensive SEC team. Those are the two best defenses they played. And LSU's defense actually gave them some problems. Arkansas, that game was close, and then probably what the score showed and how much points they scored. So I'm thinking at that time, Georgia's they got one of the best defenses I've ever seen, actually. Not only do they have the best defense in college football, they got one of the best I've ever seen. So this is just Bama's weakness. And I still believe that it really is. So I'm thinking Georgia's really going to, maybe not no problem, but they're going to be fine against Alabama just because of the matchup. So that was my thought process, and maybe I'm thinking too much, but I start thinking more and more. You look at, Georgia, what offenses have they played? I think the best offense, and I'm not trying to take away from anything from their defense. I literally think it's one of the best, maybe the best defense I've actually seen in college football. They got first-round picks all over the place there. But the best offense they've seen is Tennessee, which actually Tennessee is a pretty good offense, believe it or not, especially down the stretch of the season where Georgia played them. That was the best offense they've seen. And Alabama's offense has been struggling, so that kind of can side towards Georgia's favor. But in an SEC championship atmosphere here, win or go home for Alabama. Maybe they were holding back, maybe a little bit on offense. Some of the playbook, I could be wrong there. I'm not really saying they did or they didn't. I think it's a possibility. This is a tough challenge. So part of me thinks Alabama can get going offensively and win the game. I'm sticking with Georgia. I think it's going to be tight. I think that defense still makes that extra play. And that's the thing, though. I do think you could score in Alabama. It's not an easy defense to play at all, but I do think Georgia, it's really on Stetson Bennett here. He's got to take care of the ball. He's been playing a lot better, but it's just a different animal in Alabama here. So I was almost starting to talk myself into Alabama, but I'm a matchup guy. When I pick NFL games, I just go purely off the matchup. Bama has struggled with the pure defensive teams, and they've really have no problem with just kind of the offensive teams. Mississippi State was a sneaky team, and they just dominated them. They even stopped their offense. Teams like that, I thought they had Ole Miss. They dominated Ole Miss. I thought that was going to be closer. I thought Bama was better than I think they are now. At that point, I really thought they were still probably the best team at that point. And they just dominated Ole Miss, and I thought that game might have been close, but it wasn't. So their strength is not Georgia. So I'm still going to stick with Georgia there. But I could see it going either way. Really, where I like Georgia is their pass rush versus the Alabama offensive line, which has not felt like an Alabama offensive line. Still solid, but it just hasn't felt anywhere near like what we expect to be the best. So that's kind of the problem there. Close game. I could see it being high scoring. I could see it. It's tough with Georgia's defense, so I just can't wait for it. Next game, I got this one high scoring. Houston and Cincinnati in the AAC championship game. Cincinnati's favored by 10.5, which is a lot. I got Cincinnati taking care of business, but only by 6 here. And Houston hasn't lost since week 1, so that's big. That's big time. They've been rolling offensively. So I like the way they're playing, but has Cincinnati really seen Houston's offense yet? And the answer really is no. I think if they saw Notre Dame now compared to when they played them, that's a team that can put up a lot more points. Next time around they played them, but they didn't really see that offense. They didn't see that, and then they played SMU. SMU was kind of going downhill after losing to Houston. I just don't think they have seen Houston's offense. So has Cincinnati been tested? I think they've been tested enough. But have they been tested like this? Not really. So I do think Houston gets some offense going, scored 31 points. But the question will be, can Houston's defense stop Cincinnati? Well, Cincinnati can manage the clock if they choose to do so as well. Ritter's heating up. Last couple of weeks, Cincinnati's kind of been, again, the SMU game was the turning point for both these teams. Houston, we knew they're a little sneaky, but let's see what they do on SMU. It's a even battle. They dominate them. Cincinnati, they already proven some things. They've proven some things against Notre Dame, but then people are starting to doubt them a little bit because they're playing it close, which teams they should be able to blow out. So everyone's starting to come down on Cincinnati a little bit, and they dominated SMU. So that seemed to be the game right there for both these teams, in my opinion. Even though Notre Dame's the bigger one for Cincinnati. But Houston on that streak. Well, technically Cincinnati's on a streak as well. I got Cincinnati taking care of business. They're better on both sides of the ball, but have they been tested like Houston? I guess it's a question. It's debatable. I don't think they cover the 10.5 though. They've been covering. I was starting to think they weren't going to cover the SMU game. They easily did. So we'll see. We will see. The Big Ten championship. I've kind of flipped. Kind of like the SEC championship. I kind of flipped my mind a little bit, but I'm still sticking with my original pick on both those because originally, when I realized that Wisconsin wasn't going to the Big Ten championship, they lost to Minnesota, and I realized I was going. I'm like, Michigan's just playing simple a lot better than Iowa right now. They're gonna have no problem, against Iowa. That's because Michigan's getting a lot better. They just dominated Ohio State. Iowa's been, they've been winning recently. It would come from behind win on Nebraska, but before that they were winning. Around that Purdue game, Wisconsin game, they were completely disappointing, obviously. But they just still haven't really felt as good as the first half of the year. I still question them. Are they good enough to be at the stage? They're here, so that thinking, I'm just thinking Michigan's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Even if the score looks closer, I think Michigan's going to be fine. But I start thinking a little bit more. Really, I don't want to base too much off the Ohio State game because Michigan dominated them, and maybe something clicked. They got a lot better. It really does feel like that. Before that, though, they dominated Maryland. The Penn State game, I think this could be similar to the Penn State game. That's kind of what I'm getting down to. The Penn State game, Penn State, if it wasn't for a broken coverage on a tight end drag, Penn State was about to win that game. They were about to win that game, so Michigan clutched up. But I could, like I'm saying, we can't just base everything on Ohio State game. Michigan's still beatable. They're still beatable. I think Michigan is a much better team than Iowa. I'll actually say that. I think they're a much better team. Head-to-head, I start to wonder, though. Michigan just dominated Ohio State, kind of inside, being physical, running the football. Let's be honest here. Iowa's pretty damn good stopping a run, actually. They are pretty damn good. Ohio State's much better than them, but it's a totally different type of matchup. It's going to be a defensive ball game. Michigan just got more, to me. So I think they win. I think it's going to be real tight, though. I think it's going to be real tight. I could even see it being lower scoring than this. I can see it being, maybe neither team scores 20. It's a lot of clock running, a lot of defense here, a lot of running the football. So I'm starting to think, and Michigan's favored by 10.5. So Vegas isn't really thinking what I'm thinking here. But I'm starting to think that maybe Iowa has the matchup keys here. But I think Michigan's just the better football team, and that maybe have the better playmakers that will ultimately decide this game. So it's going to be another fun one. They're all going to be great here. And then we got the ACC championship game. Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, a lot of scoring in this one, obviously. And I got Pittsburgh. Big game for Kenny Pickett. Right now, he's kind of known as the top quarterback in the NFL draft and going against a weaker defense. But a game that you're going to have to win in a shootout, you have to have a big game here. He's going to have to have a big game. And I think he will. I like the way Pittsburgh's offense matches up Wake Forest defense. Obviously, they got an NFL quarterback on their team. And then you look at the Pittsburgh defense versus Wake Forest offense. Wake Forest going to score. It's what they do. But I think Pittsburgh's got that defense to slow them down enough. Even though Wake Forest scoring 35 points, so I actually have Pittsburgh covering here. Again, offensive game. I think the difference is because I'm going to trust both these offenses evenly. Overall, Wake Forest usually scores more. Pittsburgh's got that quarterback, and they're going against a weaker defense. So we're gonna call it even offensively. I think the difference is that what defense can make that one play. It might be one play. Who can do it. I'm gonna trust Pittsburgh a little bit. Trust Kenny Pickett. So I got Pittsburgh winning 41-35 and then covering that spread. Of course there's more games here. So I kind of show you what I have here on which we've been doing all year on the ESPN pick'ems here. Western Kentucky, Texas San Antonio. I've loved Texas San Antonio this year. They got down early against Southern Miss. They had to come back, and then they got their ass beat to North Texas, which was surprising. And they cut it close a couple weeks ago as well. That was a very close game. It took a last UAB. It took a last drive of the game to win that one. So they haven't really felt like the UTSA that was great earlier in the year. So I'm going to go Western Kentucky. I've been picking UTSA all year. I'm going to go Western Kentucky, though. If it's 3.5, this says the line's 3.5 on this. Take Oregon, excuse me. I think they lose by 3, so it's going to be tight. And Oregon could win the game, realistically. Take Oklahoma State there. If there's no worry about Bohannon 100%, which I don't think that's possible. I don't think they're going to go into the game like he's fine. He's 100%. We're good to go. He's going to be in the whole game. I don't think that's going to be the case. But if that's the case, I'd take Baylor in this one. But I'll take Oklahoma State minus 6.5. Kent State, NIU. I actually haven't caught a lot of action this year, but I actually watched the Kent State NIU game, which was a few weeks ago, maybe more than a few, but around there, 3-4 weeks ago. And it was a fun one. Kent State ran all over them, and NIU threw all over them, and Kent State pulled it off. So I think we're going to see a rematch of that. A lot of running the ball, a lot of passing the ball. I think NIU could have won that game last time, and they pulled it off this time, and they're plus 2.5. So we're going to go with them. Utah State, San Diego State. I have San Diego State winning, I'd say, by around a touchdown. Appalachian State and Louisiana. Louisiana just lost their head coach to the Florida Gators, so that's not good. I would probably pick Louisiana. Yeah, plus 2.5. If they had their coach still, I'd pick Louisiana, but that's not the case. I'll take Appalachian State, winning by the 3 to 7 points there. Georgia and Bama. Yeah, I have a 3-point game, so I'm taking Bama. I actually flipped on that one, but you saw my score prediction earlier. I didn't have Cincinnati winning by the full 10.5, 6 actually, so I picked Houston, and then Michigan and Iowa. I think Iowa's got some solid matchups in their favor. So they'll hold it under the 10.5, but Michigan's just the better team. So I think they'll win. And in Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, we just saw. And that Pittsburgh's favored. This says plus 2.5. We just went over it just a second ago. But even if they're minus whatever I had the line at being, or plus this, obviously I'm going Pittsburgh there. But that's going to be a good game, shootout game. We need that shootout game because a lot of these other games, well, Houston, Cincinnati, besides that one. If we're talking the MAC then too. But all the other ones are probably more defensive game. So that is my picks for this week for the conference championship week. I'm really excited about it. Rankings actually come out tonight. Can't wait to see those. Always talking on Twitter, so check it out. And we'll have our picks for the playoff and everything as well once we're ready to do those. So we have full NFL coverage here, so join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Any link you're looking for down below, but that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.